Okay, welcome back. This is Chapter 8. And Chapter 8 is all about how to tweak an existing Excel spreadsheet to make it more robust. The title is Refine an Excel Application. Now, when I first read that, I went, I don't have a clue what the heck they're talking about. But when you get past the learning objectives, we'll be able to figure it out. So, as always, page 411, it says View Formula Precedence and dependence. Okay, that's pretty cool. Evaluate formulas. That's pretty cool. Correct circular references. That's something that occurs occasionally. Use the watch window. Okay. Control data entry with data validation. Ooh, that's some good stuff there. Create and use macros. Yep, we're going to do that. Change how to navigate in a workbook, and doing protection, data protection. Okay, so first of all, let's talk kind of in general terms. You know, they start off with auditing formulas. Well, what's the purpose for doing all that? Typically, it's to find a mistake. If you put together a spreadsheet and you know, maybe you're a little concerned that you know, somebody's maybe messed with it, or they've added something, or you don't think you're getting the right answers, then there's some tools you can do to go through. The first ones are the auditing tools on page 412. They talk about trace precedence, trace dependence, and evaluate. So before we even get cranking, let's talk about the terms what they're using here. If I open up a spreadsheet and I see that there's a bunch of formulas here, one of the things you can do is, for example, you can probably imagine that there's going to be a formula here, right? You know, the charge per hour, number of hours, and you know, you can click here and you can see a bunch of stuff. And okay, cool, that worked. But it's kind of rough to visually see if these cells are actually the right thing. So one of the things you can do, if you go to formulas, and there's a little section here called formula auditing, you can click this little button called trace precedence. And so precedence basically means what was used as input for this cell. So precedence is the input or the source, okay? Later on, we're going to do one for trace dependence, which is the exact opposite, which means how many people are using the value of this cell somewhere. Okay, that's pretty cool. So for example, if I click on here and say trace it could be this guy has no dependence. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and say trace dependence here, and it comes back and says, well, we didn't find it. In other words, no one is using that number someplace else. Okay, that's cool. I'm going to click down one more and hit trace dependence, and it says, aha, the trace dependent is being used by the subtotal. Okay, that's pretty cool. So again, dependence is the output or the destination, so to speak. Where is this cell being used? And precedence is where did all my input come from? Cool. And the whole point of this is, you know, to find and fix bugs. All right. So if I start with, by the way, every time you do one of these, you get these little arrows on the screen, and there's a little doodad here that says remove the arrows. Right? Okay, so I'm going to go down here to this subtotal, because I'm thinking maybe this subtotal, it shows $150 for a subtotal. I'm looking up there and I'm going, I don't know, that don't look like $150 for a subtotal. I think there's something wrong with the formula. And yeah, you could click here and you could see a bunch of stuff, but that's not really, I mean, that's somewhat helpful to see that, but there's a little bit more. So if I click on this and say, okay, show me what is being used by this. In other words, what are the inputs of this? You click this, and it shows you this range of cells are being used, this range of cells. And you can immediately tell, graphically, that I'm actually missing this row right here. So there's an error in this spreadsheet, and using the trace tool, I can figure out that, yep, there's an error. Now, I'm gonna hit the trace one more time. So this first one told me that these are the cells. I'm going to hit it again, and it's going to tell me that those cells are based upon these cells. And if I hit it again, it's going to say, well, those cells are based upon these cells. And so, you know, you can step through it. You can go through and say, you know, show me the first level, and then you can, you know, drill down a little bit more, and drill down a little bit more, and drill down a little bit more, so you can see the entire thing. Now, unlike just this single formula, where all you saw was a range that was incorrect, this will tell you more. This tells me that the range is, in this case, incorrect, but that's not the point. The range is here, and the values, you know, you just back it up, back it up, back it up. So this is a very cool tool for discovering whether or not you made an error. Okay. Once again, to make the arrows go away, I just hit the little remove arrow guy just to make that go away. Isn't that pretty cool? Okay. So now that I've discovered an error, I can fix it. So I'm going to go here and change this range. Instead of a 16, I'm going to make him a 15. Woohoo! And now I've found my error by using this trace precedence, and I fixed it. Okay, that was pretty cool. So either dependence or precedence, depending on how you want to work this thing. Like I said, sometimes you know, not everyone has a dependent, for example. But anyway, so click through those guys and hit them multiple times to find out how deep they go. It's pretty cool stuff. All right, the next thing we're going to do is this thing called the evaluate. Evaluate the function. So there's another error on this spreadsheet, and I'm supposed to be getting the tax. See, I have my subtotal of $250, and I'm supposed to have tax, but it's not working. There's something wrong. And so when I click on this, I can't immediately tell what's going on. I mean, I could, but you know, I'd have to go and figure out what cell's looking at. So there's another little doodad here called evaluate formula. And what this basically does is allow you to step through using live data. So it starts up saying, what this thing says is it's F1 times E33. So if I say evaluate, just click the button one time, it's going to evaluate each one. It's going to tell me what's in those cells. So I click it once, and it says that's 250. If I click it again, it says sales tax, and I go, what? 250 times the text sales tax? Okay, I think I found my problem. So this is a really cool way you can kind of just, you know, drill in and see honest to God real data, and all it's really doing, you're not really evaluating the formula per se, you're evaluating all the elements. Now, admittedly, if this was a long formula that had lots and lots of parentheses, right, it would evaluate starting in the middle, right? You'd evaluate, turn that into a number, and then it would take that, and you know, you could see the calculation as it was being built by just hitting evaluate over and over and over and over and over to come out. So in this case, there's a mistake. Clearly, I don't want to multiply times sales tax, the text sales tax. I probably want to multiply times this guy over here. By the way, when I'm in this either one, when I'm either doing the tracing or the evaluating, if I find an error, I can't actually fix it here, okay? So tracing and evaluating are very good for finding a problem, but they're kind of useless for fixing it. So I happen to know now that this is pointing to the wrong cell. It should not be pointing to E33. So in fact, it should be pointing to D33. So fixing it is the same old way you always did it. You did it by going up to the formula bar. Whoop. Okay. Okay, so I have found two problems in this this spreadsheet so far. Cool. So now this formula does exactly what it's supposed to do. Cool. Now there's another problem in this spreadsheet, and it's called a circular reference. In other words, if I get the answer from Bob and Bob gets the answer from me, well, who gets the answer? How does the answer even work? So let me show you a very common, I'm just going to pop out the spreadsheet here. Here's a very common problem. I go in here and I type some numbers, you know, and I want to do a sum here, right? And so I say sum, except for some reason, instead of saying A1 to A5, I accidentally say A6, okay? So, in other words, A1 down to A5 would have been what I really wanted. But since I did A1 to A6, I actually have the value of A6 being referenced in the value of A6, which is kind of weird. It's called a circular reference. Okay, so in their particular case, they have one here. I have a value indicator, and let's use that trace precedent thing, right? And so before, when we had arrows, you remember what color they were? No, of course not. Anyway, if you get a red one of these, a red arrow means I have a circular reference. And basically what that means is this value is being used inside here and the value itself. So let's look at this. It says go from F31 through F35. And that's clearly not what I wanted. I wanted F31 through F34. So I need to go fix it. So once again, the little tool showed me the error, but I had to do my own fixing. Okay? Let's go back to this guy. And I wanted to use trace dependence. And that did not do what I was expecting it to do. I'm not exactly certain why I didn't get the red arrow here. But if you look down here at the bottom, you can see that it shows that I have a circular reference going on. Okay. So that's essentially, again, the tools that you use to determine these things. The next thing we're going to talk about on page 416 is what's called the watch window. And so let's say I have a complex kind of a thing going on here, and I want to go in and just kind of keep track of things and see what's going on, because, you know, again, I'm not too seen. So there's a little doodad here called the watch window. And let's say, for example, I want to keep track of the subtotal, sales tax, other, and total. So what I've done, I've clicked on the cell and hold the control key down to click on these 4 cells. Then I hit the watch window and say add. And what it did is it added those 4 cells into a watch window. Now the cool part about the watch window is it displays in real time as the spreadsheet is working both the formulas and the values that appear in each one of those cells. Now sometimes this thing's kind of in the way. You know, you just pick it up and drag it. You know, you just grab it by the title bar, grab it by the title bar and move it around. Now watch what happens if you grab it by the title bar and move it up here. It'll kind of dock to kind of get out of the way. So now you can actually, you know, use your spreadsheet. Let's go here, for example, and let's add something else. I don't know what. Let's add something that costs $50. And as soon as I do that, the subtotal should, you know, subtotal changed, then the tax changed, and the, you know, all these things changed automatically as this thing worked. By the way, if you don't like this guy, you can tear him off, so to speak. You grab this guy and just tug on him. You have to kind of move him a little ways. Or you can just hit X, or you can just close the window down. The cool part about when you close the window down, if you were to save the worksheet now and then open it back up and do the watch window, the same watches will be there, okay? In other words, if you save the thing now, not that they will be showing, but you don't have to type them all in over again. So again, this is pretty cool for trying to figure out the inner workings where, you know, you're not too certain, so you just put, you know, I want to see this cell, I want to see that cell, and I want to see this cell. And now let's watch that as I'm doing my spreadsheet thing. Okay, so that's essentially how the watch window. It's about keeping an eye out on a few cells. And of course it shows both the formulas and the values. And it is live data. So, you know, as you're doing something in the real world, it's actually showing you what's really there. This is a good place to start for the 15-minute mark. We'll see you again in just a few.